Hello, family. Um, I wanted to come on here and do the first part of the recap and um, the downloads received on Stone Mountain. It's been a couple of weeks, and I don't know if any of you that were on the mountain or had planned to come to the mountain have been receiving the downloaded messages. I feel like for my experience, it's almost like the information was received on the mountain, and like I've been processing that information ever since, and it's becoming more clear as time goes. So time goes by. So at first I was gonna get all techie and and do all of these sources, citing all of these sources. But listen, you're gonna hear the sources in this material. A lot of this information is channeled, and it has secondary and um, tertiary resources that will back the information up as it's been disseminated within the stories told about planet Earth. So, if you hear something that you're not quite familiar with, Google that shit and go from there, okay? Because we got to get this information out here to the public. All right, so one of the things I did say I was going to talk about was the significance of Stone Mountain in Atlanta, Georgia, specifically where Dr. King is, or was rather, um, his hometown area. So let's dive into this. For additional, um, just research on Dr. King and his legacy, there are two things that we can look up. The first one is um, the audit that the Poor People's Campaign did of Dr. King's work. I believe they published it in 2018. It was an audit of the 50 years of Dr. King's work. Now, my research went a little bit differently than that audit, which I actually didn't discover until I was done with the research on Dr. King. But my research on Dr. King, it went into the details of who he was as a person and what he discovered while he was, on the campaign trail of the civil rights movement. And so, and what he wanted to do when his plan was to go back to Washington, D.C. to demand, and his words, not mine, we are going back to get our check. Okay. And so just Google that, and you can also find the videos, snippets and clips on YouTube as well. But like I said, I also, as a graduate student, I did research on Dr. King, and when I was in grad school, and I published that information on ResearchGate. All you have to do is go to Google and type in "Rediscovering the Legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King from 1968 to 2018," and you can find my research there on researchgate.net. So anyway, the reason why it's important to start with Dr. King and his legacy first is because he was way more than just a civil rights leader, and he was way more than just a Southern preacher. Okay, Dr. King was a political scientist in his own right. He had 3 different degrees and in 3 different subject areas. Okay, he got his undergrad in one, his master's in one, and his doctoral in another. He was a multifaceted, multi-dimensional being, okay? This is why he was so far ahead of his time when it came to research and doing research. He researched things from biblical scripture to Carl Jung. You know, he was way ahead of his time in terms of understanding the macrocosm of what was going on at the time and what had the possibility to happen in the future if certain things within time did not take place. And so what's the whole point of why Dr. King's story and the significance of Stone Mountain and what happened on Stone Mountain during that meeting is because Dr. King was right. Okay. Dr. King was right. What he told the United States of America was right. And his not only dream was fulfilled on that day, but his research checked out. The Bible says, study to show thyself approved. 6:13 on the clock when I start saying that. That is quite important. If we look at Ephesians chapter 6 verse 13 and see what it says, and it basically lets us know, having done all that the situation has required us to do, we stand. Okay? And this is what this is saying from a spiritual perspective. Okay? As above, so below. Humanity has done all that the situation has required them to do in every which way they could, whether it was with war or with peace, whether it was with reasonable or unreasonable strategies. Okay? Humanity, in order to achieve balance, has done everything that it could do. So the only thing left is to unify and allow God to do God's part. That's just where we are. Okay. So anyway, like I said, Dr. King's legacy is quite important. 737 is quite important. Okay. And actually that number 737 is also encoded into my notes here, and we'll dive into that later. All right. So like I said, yeah, Dr. King was a political scientist in his own right. And I've often told people that some of the coldest seers in the world are political scientists. Why? Well, because they have the ability to see the information, i.e. the energy, in multiple subjects. Okay? Whether that is history, whether that is economics, whether that is statistics, whether that is geography or psychology or several others. Okay? Sociology. You know, it is what it is. It's political scientists look at the information, the same theme work of information from a multi-dimensional perspective. So this is why they're able to not only see but accurately, okay, estimate what's happening next, what's gonna come next. And this is who Dr. King was. Okay? He had the ability to do that. And he was right. So now, one of the things I said in the intro to the Stone Mountain, the Stone Mountain meeting is my position in the United States. I've lived along. I was born, I lived along, and then came back to, by way of my ancestral story, to Stone Mountain. And let me explain in a very simplified way what all of that means. Okay? It means this. It means that truth that embodies itself is always going to need and require a witness to it. It's going to need someone 10:10 on the clock as I finish saying that. It's always going to require a witness to validate, to verify and validate its information in order to see if it checks out. And so several years ago, almost 9 years ago, when it was time when God sent me on this journey to go to grad school, even though I was minding my own business, sent me on this journey to go to grad school to find out not only what was going on in the world, but who this man was specifically and what he was trying to accomplish while here. And that in and of itself allowed me to journey into my own discovery or rediscovery, if you will, of myself, of self. Okay, because that at the end of the day, the most important truth that we dive into, the most important truth is the truth about self. Okay, so anyway, like I said, to make a long story short, the best way I can say all of that is this: I'm a witness to Dr. King's truth, and to see, as someone who studied political science and history while in grad school, I can see his truth very clearly. Okay, and so any of the speakers that were there on Stone Mountain, if they have been reiterating Dr. King's story and the importance and the significance of it, then it would behoove the audience to go back and review. I know there's at least a couple that I have witnessed that have reiterated his story, but it's quite important to do so, to help fill in the gaps of the importance of Dr. King's story in association with the Stone Mountain meeting. And so if you've listened to any of my previous videos, one of the things that I often say is you can't bypass truth and get to love. Okay? We're ready to create this beautiful love story on planet Earth. And that's great. Glad we're there. We want that very bad. However, if we are not in a place to rightfully divide truth by now, then chances are we're going to have a really hard time manifesting that love story. All right. So we really need to get into the importance of not just learning these characters or figures in history and in the current world. It's not just important to know them. It is important to know them, to know ourselves even deeper than we know them. Okay. All right. So I don't want to get into the binary code just yet. I want to save that for later. But one of the things I did want to talk about too is the ancestral story. My ancestral story, like I said, brought me to Stone Mountain, by way of my ancestors, specifically the matrilineal side of my ancestral story. And like I said, that was after about 160 years, I journeyed back to where my maternal ancestors came from. And let's discuss why That is so important. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the weather that week. We know that something was going on in the cosmos. Okay. We got visited by a meteor in that area. We know that it was televised. And there were storms um, going on just crazy. It caused, flights to be canceled, that kind of thing. All right. Well, a few months before, well, not even a few months, I would say a few weeks, okay? A month and a half, month or two, something like that. But a few weeks, like I said, before the Stone Mountain visit, I kept hearing, "This is the season for Oya's revenge." I'm like, what? This is the season for Oya's revenge. Now let's quickly review and discuss who Oya is. Okay, Oya is the Orisha of um, storms. Okay, she is, in my mind, when I think of her, she is the number 37. She is the storm or stormer. If you look that number up, you find out it is called a stormer number. She is the storm or the stormer number here. And ironically enough, we just saw the number 737 as we were discussing a very important point. Okay, that 737 is a Yeshua code. It is a completion code of multidimensionality. And that will be a later extended video. But my whole point to all of that is that 737 is a completion of that stormer number. And this is what I saw in my mind's eye when I saw the weather that week, what was going on, and specifically happening in that area. It was her letting us know that she's here, okay, in a major way. And anybody that knows the Orisha Oya, they know she don't play no games. She don't, okay? She will leave you drowning in your own blood when you hard of hearing. She don't play no games. All right. So yeah, so that's like I say, muy importante. It is very important to recognize and pay attention to as well. All right. So now, should I get into that right now? No, I'm gonna save that one for later. Okay. We're gonna save that story for later. It's gonna be vitally important, but we're gonna save it. Okay, so let's see here. Hmm. Mm. Okay, so now let's talk about again Dr. King, the importance of Dr. King, his legacy, and the Stone Mountain meeting. Okay, so let's talk about this number 1965. And this is, of course, the year in and around the time that the civil rights movement is taking place. It's actually in the crust of it between 1963-ish to about 1968. You're looking at about the halfway mark or so in the year in 1965. Now, if you take that number, 1 plus 9 equals 10, and then 6 plus 5 equals 11, and 11 plus 10 equals 21. That again represents that 7 times 3 is 21, or 3 times 7 is 21. Again, that represents that 737 marker. Okay, 21 minutes on the clock as I'm saying this. All right, so that is important because 1965 was a coded year, right? So when they make the reference, or when whoever makes the reference, they killed the king, they truly did. All right. And that was not no good thing to do that, because if you keep killing your messengers off, then eventually God will stop sending them. Okay. So I heard a young lady on social media one time several years back. She said when Dr. King died, the rest of the nation is like they went to sleep. And she's absolutely right. Okay. And so when you are asleep in a house, unless you wake up, you don't know what's going on around you. Symbolically speaking, that's what happened over those next 50 some odd years after Dr. King was assassinated in this country. We ain't even talking about the world. We're just talking about this country. So, like I said, 1965 represents a 21 year. That is a marker for a completion code of 737. Okay. It is a truth code. This is why the number 737, if you just Google it or go to YouTube, you'll see that it is also associated with Yeshua, with Jesus, with his story. Okay. The number 737 is also associated with another character that we're going to really begin to dive into, and that is Goku. Okay. He could be antiquated to today's Yeshua. Okay. So he is the fictional character that that has basically swept the world in terms of who he is and what he represents as a hero and his hero story. So we're going to dive into that one later. But like Goku, like Jesus, and like Dr. King, they in their own rights had the essence of someone who represented and brought to life this I am story, or Dr. King was I have, meaning I have a dream, and Jesus was the I am figure. Goku also in his own right has the I am speech at the end of the Frieza saga, where he gives this golden form, in his golden form as he's turned Super Saiyan. He's in his golden form, and he lets Frieza know who he is. And in his speech, one of the things he lets him know is he says, I am truth. Okay. So the number 737 is associated with all three of these characters. And there is also another number that they are associated with, but I'll get into that later. Okay, so the whole point of who these three characters are in association with each other is the bottom line is I am Christ means I am truth. All right. I am the real deal. I'm the one that's going to bring you the truth in love as best as I possibly can, whether you like it or not, because that's just my job. And so when we look at Dr. King's life, when we look at Yeshua's life, when we look at Goku's fictional character and his life, this is what we're looking at. We're looking at heroes, real, true to life heroes, okay, in their own dimensional stories. Right? These three represent the avatars of truth. Okay? They are the avatars of truth in their own form, in their own likeness, in their own way. Okay? Just like Aang, the airbender, the avatar, the last airbender Aang. These are characters of truth. Okay? And this is how we transform into the hero of our own story, is when we know what our truth is in our story. That's how we do that. That's how we transform. So anyway, I'll be diving deep in a little bit deeper into that, the rest of this channel message, because it was a lot. It was a whole lot, and I'm just briefly touching on stuff, y'all. Just very, very, very briefly. I think I'm gonna go ahead and end part 1 here because, like I said, there's so much information. 27 minutes on the clock. We'll talk about the significance of the number 27 in one of the later videos. But like I said, I'm gonna finish up this part 1. I'll be on later with another part 2. You guys have a great, blessed day. Be safe, be blessed. God bless you. God keep you. And we will see you next time.